Y'all, we got another Tubi movie. It's called An Unusual Suspect. Viola January is a rising star at a private law firm, but her latest case could make or break her career. Firstly, are her style of bangs trending right now? Because I don't understand them. She's fighting to clear her client, Ronaldo, accused of kidnapping a black woman named Trisha Norfleet. Viola believes he's innocent, but the evidence is thin, and the federal prosecutor, Deck, isn't budging. The bald-headed man don't even shake her hand, and talks down on her after saying he will only negotiate when she has compelling evidence. Refusing to back down, Viola burns the midnight oil, and her determination doesn't go unnoticed. Her boss, Letitia, pops out of nowhere with a jump scare sound.
Oh, fuck, you scared the shit out of me.
She is impressed with Viola, and a potential promotion hangs in sight if she keeps up the good work. But as Viola locks up for the night, something feels wrong. A chill creeps down her spine. Is she being followed, or is it just her kitty cat purring? Panic sets in, and she jolts to her car to drive off. Moments later, a car appears in her rear view, and it's Will, her ex, who is a cop. He calls to check in, but let's be real, his jaw alone already disqualifies him from having another chance with Viola. The following day, Viola meets with her client, Ronaldo, to talk about his case. Ronaldo is scared he might do 10 years in prison if things go wrong. A kid there reminds him of his childhood, where he was bullied and abused by his mother. Viola feels bad for him and promises to get him out ASAP. But something about the case terrifies Ronaldo. He is scared he might be killed when it's time for his release, because the same thing happened to Viola's brother. The next morning, she meets Trisha, the same woman who was kidnapped. Trisha is still terrified about the kidnapping, so she tells Viola to get out her office. Viola says she thinks the guy is still out there, and Ronaldo isn't the guy. At home, when Viola takes out the trash, she sees a white van across the street, the same van that was reported in Ronaldo's case file. While in shock, Trisha calls and says that they should meet at a spot tomorrow. During their meeting, Trisha says she is scared that the man who kidnapped her is still on the loose. She confirms she was pressured to pick Ronaldo as a suspect and recalls how she escaped from the white van when she was kidnapped. Even now, she feels like she's in cuffs and can't forget the smell from the van. It smelled like paint chemicals. That evening, a homeless man scares Viola on the road, and a guy named Frank intervenes. He introduces himself as the owner of a nearby auto shop and with a confident smile, hands her his business card. Frank flirts a little, but Viola isn't interested. She just wants to get home. Her best friend Makina comes over and they prepare dinner together. Viola says she's an atheist, but all I keep thinking about is maybe Viola do need them bangs because her forehead real big. A few days later, Viola receives the forensic report concerning Ronaldo's case. She presents the results, more evidence, and a good argument in court and wins the case. Ronaldo is excited about his release, so they do a handshake. As Viola leaves the court, the white van pulls up on her. Scared, she aims her gun at the van, and it drives away. Girl, that was probably just an Amazon van. She reports the situation to Will, who then suggests that she stay at his place until the serial killer is found, but she declines, saying his jaw takes up most of the space in his house. That evening, Viola celebrates with Makina for winning Ronaldo's case. On the contrary, she feels something is off about Will and wonders if he is the one following her. A call comes in from the serial killer, who tells her to stop snooping around his business. Viola is beyond terrified at this point. The next morning, she discovers a tracking device on her car and asks Will about it. She thinks Will is behind it, but he says he can never hurt her. At night, Viola hears some noise from outside. She calls the plumber, and he says that the pipes caused the noise. The following day, the serial killer calls her again and threatens her. This time, she tells her boss, Letitia, who advises that she report to the police immediately. Viola takes her advice and meets the police chief to report her situation, but she doesn't like the officer's reaction to her case. The police chief says he can only act when there's evidence of credible threat to her life, and it pisses her off. She leaves the office without filling out the report. Meanwhile, Will has been eavesdropping the whole time. On her way out of the station, Viola sees Frank's business card and stops by his shop. She asks for access to his security cameras so she can investigate the kidnapping that occurred months ago. Frank says his cameras haven't worked in months, but he shows her what he has left. Also, Viola notices that he works with lots of chemicals, but Frank brushes off her suspicions. When she gets home, it feels as if someone was there before her. On checking each room in the house, she finds no one. Little does she know that her vent is screwed open. One day at work, a call comes in, and she is scared to answer. When she does, she realizes it's Ronaldo who offers to buy her lunch. Viola agrees and stops by a spot with him. When asked, he says that he works at a barbershop and is hoping to get his spot soon. He gets too comfortable and tries flirting with Viola, but she's in her light skin era. She hits Ronaldo with the classic, "You're like a brother to me," effectively curving him and shutting down any hopes he had. Before eating, Viola notices the logo on Ronaldo's hand sanitizer and asks where he got it. She seems suspicious, but Ronaldo claims he doesn't know where he got it. When Viola leaves, she notices the white van following her and pulls over at the police station to lose him. At night, Makina stays with her and insists that she file a police report the next day. She agrees to talk to the cops again, but Will interrupts. His presence there upsets her, and she leaves without filing the report. This man too obsessed with our girl. On her way to work, she sees Ronaldo at a saloon and notices that the logo is the same as the one on Frank's business card. At work, a client calls and is angry that Viola hasn't sent his firm's files. Letitia notices her poor performance and calls her out on it. She reminds her that she needs to perform regardless of what's going on in her life, yet she tells Viola that her door is always open when she needs help. Why do I feel like Letitia want to eat Viola out? Rather than send her client's files, she continues investigating Frank and learns that he owns the barbershop where Ronaldo works. She then calls Will and asks for a favor, promising him a dinner date if he delivers. That night, Viola jolts awake from a nightmare, where the serial killer drugs and kidnaps her. She meets Will the following evening for dinner, who reminds her of the good times they spent together. On the bed, on the kitchen table, on the hotel floor, and on the balcony. Soon he hands her a DNA report that proves that Ronaldo and Frank are brothers. Although Will would rather give Viola his DNA. The revelation is shocking, and Will wonders why she is still investigating a person she released from prison. He then says something about Viola's late brother that strikes a nerve. A few years ago, a crime was committed, and Viola's brother was wrongfully accused. Viola was his alibi and is currently upset about Will's careless comment. Will is sorry for what he said. He drops a dramatic performance to apologize, but Viola tells his corny ass to sit. She says she finds it weird that Ronaldo and Frank are brothers, and that Ronaldo is working in a barbershop close to the spot where Trisha was kidnapped. After hearing this, Will thinks it's not safe for her to keep investigating. He wants to help, but by letting her stay in his place. We already know what he finna do. The following day, Viola buys Ronaldo lunch and asks about his brother, Frank. Immediately, he recalls a time when Frank was bullied by his mother, and he could do nothing about it. Ronaldo feels he is being interrogated, so he tries to leave. That's when Will appears from nowhere and starts cursing at Ronaldo, daring him to a fight. When Ronaldo leaves, Viola is pissed that he followed her. At night, Frank notices that Will is watching him. Pissed, he confronts Ronaldo, thinking he is talking to the cops, but Ronaldo says otherwise. A few days later, Viola meets Trisha and learns that she has been getting death threats from the serial killer. She also realizes that she's late for a work meeting and speeds off. However, she loses the client and gets fired by Letitia, despite her pleas. That afternoon, Makina consoles and encourages Viola. Hold a minute. Our girl doing every type of hairstyle in this movie. Work. Makina believes that Viola can either find a new job or start her own law firm. Makina is confident that God is working behind the scenes, but Viola says there ain't no God except Beyonce. Later that night, she checks the news and is horrified to discover that Trisha has been kidnapped and killed. Fearing for her own safety, Viola agrees to stay at Will's place. Upon arriving, she sees photos that reveal Will's ongoing obsession with her. Unbeknownst to her, someone is watching from the shadows. The following day, she finds her brother's case files in the living room and wonders why Will has them. It upsets her, and she decides to leave the house. She tells Will not to call, text, or follow her again once she leaves, and he is devastated. Why he kinda look like handsome Squidward. Later that morning, Viola decides to investigate Frank's shop on her own. Upon arriving, she is shocked to see a white van parked behind the building. Her suspicions deepen, prompting her to break into the shop. Inside, she sneaks over to Frank's computer and plays videos of Ronaldo identifying women for Frank at a lake. She starts recording the footage but stops when she hears a noise coming from another room. On tracing its source, she draws her weapon and is shaken at the sight of Frank cutting and dumping human parts in acid. When Frank notices her, he is disappointed that she kept on with her investigations. Yet Ronaldo appears and knocks her out cold. He lashes out at Frank and quits on their operation. The way Ronaldo protects Viola annoys Frank because he didn't protect him from their mother when they were kids. He reiterates that he went to jail for Frank and he's done helping him. A fight breaks out between them. That's when Viola regains consciousness. Unfortunately, Will enters and shoots Ronaldo, telling Viola to run for her life. He gets distracted and is shot by Frank. Immediately, Viola drives off and calls the cops, saying that Will is in trouble. She explains everything to the police chief, who mobilizes officers to Frank's shop. She's also assigned a police officer to watch and keep her safe. On reaching her house, the police officer sweeps through all the rooms to ensure that no one is inside, but he overlooks the vent. Unknown to him, Frank is in there watching. Later, after Viola gets out of the shower, Frank sneaks up on her and attempts to suffocate her. She fights back and manages to get her gun. Frank underestimates her, assuming that she does not have the guts to kill. Yet he catches a bullet and falls to the ground. Will arrives shortly after and is relieved to find that she's okay. A few days later, Viola appears in court, but this time on the federal prosecutor's side. She lays out her case with precision, revealing that Frank was the true mastermind behind the kidnappings, and Ronaldo was his reluctant accomplice. She explains how the brothers were haunted by years of abuse from their mother, and how that trauma twisted into a motive, targeting young black women who reminded them of her. After presenting the evidence, Viola does something unexpected. She turns to the court and apologizes for ever defending Ronaldo. Ronaldo then takes the stand. He insists he never killed anyone, but admits he helped his brother cover it up, disposing of the bodies, keeping quiet, and even going to prison for crimes he didn't commit. He confesses that Frank manipulated him for years, blaming him for not protecting him as a child. With remorse in his voice, Ronaldo apologizes to both Viola and the court, but regardless, the judge sentences him to life in prison. Outside the courtroom, Viola is met with praise. Makina congratulates her for seeing the case through. Then, in true dramatic fashion, Will shows up, uninvited of course. He congratulates her for winning the case and bagging a new job. And just when she thinks she's free of his mess, he drops to one knee, not to propose but to beg her to stay friends. Viola, clearly over it, says yes just to get him off the floor. After that, Makina reflects on everything they've been through. She tells Viola that God used her to uncover the truth, and honestly, she finds that kind of peace refreshing. So wait a minute, Trisha correctly identified Ronaldo and was eventually killed anyway by Frank with the help of Ronaldo. That's effed up. What did you guys think of this one?
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.